for me, what carried me at certain times is really that sentence: thank you for all that is taken, and thank you for all that is given.
I love that. I love that. I have one that I say a lot. It's, yeah, thank you for all the blessings I have received, all the blessings I am receiving. Thank you for all the blessings I will receive. And I trust. My guest is Nicola Amadora. She is the author of Love Unleashed, a dear friend, and the woman who brought me to France to go into the caves of Mary Magdalene. Nicola is a PhD. She is a spiritual teacher, a psychologist, a group facilitator, and an international speaker. She is definitely bringing spirit into everyday life. Her mission, her calling, and everything she does is about the practical. It's about how we can embrace the journey of awakening and bring it into our interactions with others, bring it into our body, bring it into our lives. I'm so honored to spend time with her. I look forward to sharing one of my mentors with you today. And so join us and explore. Happy you're here. Awakening with joy. That's what we're doing together.
Thank you for inviting me. I love you, Joy. It's wonderful.
Thank you for saying yes and being with me today. I'm thrilled. Or tonight.
Yes, and it is in the middle of the night here in France.
Yeah. And so I mean, that's where I want to start. You live in France, you were living in Portugal, you just moved. Talk, and it sounded like a really guided move.
Oh, yeah, incredibly guided. And, if we talk about the feminine way and the awakening and all that, I would say, for me, the big piece is always the embodiment of, because it's easy to talk, and yet it's the living of it. And so with this part of my journey, as you know, I lived before in California for a long time and was in Portugal, and then I did not want to move anymore. I was done. I have lived in so many countries and taught in many countries. I was done. So I got a horse and cats and everything, and I really settled down on Mother Gaia in the spot of Portugal in Sintra, which is a magical place. And I was clear to the whole universe, I'm not moving no more. Fini, fini, fini. And then I get my rental from these wonderful landlords. They said, well, we're going to sell the house, so you have to move out. And I was not happy about that because, when you nest and you finally feel like, okay, I'm staying. There's something about the feminine that needs to root. But then I was like, okay, well, surrender with the flow, right? And I kept listening because I just couldn't find anything in this area anymore because everything had turned into Airbnbs. It's become like a huge popular spot, Sintra. Long story short, I was like perplexed. And every night, what happened is, in the night when your mind is off, and every night I wake up with a jolt and I only hear 3 words: reclaim your lands.
Reclaim your lands. Wow.
And I was thinking, do I have land somewhere? Do I have a deed or a title to a land? What do you mean with reclaim my lands? My home is on this earth. What is this? Second night, I wake up again and my hair rose like these truth bumps. Reclaim your lands. The voice was loud. The third night, it was as if I had really bad ears. It was booming and I couldn't sleep afterwards. Reclaim your lands. And I started crying. But it was like something was so deeply moved with these words, but I still didn't know, what does that mean? I didn't call on the phone. I called internally to her and asked, please be more clear. This is like getting a little like, I don't know which lens and what you want me to do. And an hour later comes a phone call as to answer that prayer request. There's a friend of mine calls me from California and says, Nicola, I have to tell you something. I get woken for 3 nights in a row and now I'm fed up. Because I'm supposed to give you a message and I know you won't like that message. And you can do whatever you want with it. And I said, okay, so tell me. And she's like, but don't be mad. You can also throw it in the trash can. I said, let's just stop it. Just tell me. She said, I'm to tell you, move to France. I'm like, I don't want to move to France. She said, I knew you would say that. I don't want to move at all anymore. She said, I knew you would say that. And I said, and where? She said, I don't know, but it's somewhere near the Pyrenees or something. And it has to do with Mary Magdalena. And I said, thank you for your message, sweetheart. I will ponder on it. I got off the phone. I'm thinking to myself, don't want to move to France. So after I got over that, the next day I asked, please be more specific. I get an email from an old friend who lives in the area of Rennes-le-Château, the Catalans. Out of the blue, he sends me a message saying, we really miss you. We would love for you to come again. Why don't you just hop on over? It's not so far. I was like, okay, it's getting more clear. It's getting more specific. I come over there. I visit. After I led the Magdalena retreat, I came here. And I love this area. You know, it's like, it's very vibrant and there's something extremely magical here. And people that I find, a lot of them, there's a really strong, what I would say, all of them feel called to live here, but also there's a spirituality that's more matured and has a depth, but also the land is just so vibrant, and you can feel the feminine, but you can also feel Magdalena really being alive here. And everybody knows her in any case. And I was still like resistant, you know, talking about being real. Even though I've lived this path for 40 years, I still sometimes feel like I have my preferences. And so I walked, and, you know, and they did a beautiful birthday celebration for me, and I met these amazing people, and I still was doubtful. And then I said, okay, send me a confirmation. And so the next day, I meet a guy out of the blue. It was really odd, but we recognized each other. And you know, when you start recognizing someone that you know from other lives, I just said, yeah, I'm pondering of moving here. And he said, did you get the call? I said, I think so. He said, what did the call say? I said, reclaim your lands. He said, okay, honey, you remember we walked into the fire together before in Montségur. Before we walked into the fire, we spoke a prophecy. Don't you remember the prophecy? My hair went up, my body remembered, everything in me started like, wow, and I couldn't remember the words. And he spoke them to me. He said, in 700 years, when the laurel blooms, we will return, reclaim our lands, and rise again. He said, welcome home. And that was it.
Nicola. Oh my gosh. Okay. So much I want to ask. First, that prophecy is part of the Cathar tradition, or tell us about the prophecy. Tell me about the prophecy.
So it was, when the big genocide happened here in the southern France and
Yeah.
literally all over Europe, where the wiping out of the witches happened, but also of the Cathars. The Cathars, which I didn't know until, a couple of years ago, they were very strongly following the teaching of Jeshua and Mary Magdalene. It was in the 1200s where the church, basically the Catholic Church, said, we don't want you to spread these news that Jeshua and Magdalena were married, priests and priestesses teach together in pairs, men, women are equal, and there's a lineage of their children, and there's these mystical teachings. The church said this is now gone way too far. This is spread like a lightning fire across, especially southern France, but then also into other countries. And the Cathars at that time were the beholders. They had many of them had a lot of lands and castles. So the king of France shook hands with the Pope at that time and said, our coffers are empty. So if we kill the Cathars, I'll get the lands, and the church protects itself from, these news that just didn't fit with the patriarchal teachings. So they combined forces, the army came and they wiped everything out. They killed children, women, men in every single village. And it was also the tradition that Mary Magdalena had established in these lands. So she had totally revolutionized, in any case, religion at that time. And they said, kill them all, which they did. It was a huge bloodbath. And the last one was the stronghold in Montségur, which is close to Rennes-le-Château, where the last Cathars remained. It was about 600 on the hill in a castle, and they were surrounded by the army. And the church, the clergy stood down there and said one day, okay, so you're running out of food. It's almost like you have nothing anymore. You can now come to either surrender to the mother church, which is the Catholic Church and their faith, and give up what you've been declaring, or you walk into the fire. They anticipated that the Cathars would surrender to the mother church. Well, that whole stream of the Cathars, they were the last remaining ones, all walked in a single line down the hill. It was like the Trail of Tears, And every one of us walked into the fire, and so the prophecy was spoken at that time. And everyone said, for the truth, we die. And that was it. Every single one walked into it. And now 700 years, and for the first time, literally, the bay laurel blooms. So it's like, how is this possible? It's like,
I've also heard that in this prophecy, Mary Magdalene came to many of the individuals, because there's a collective and an individual choice going on here. Like, am
yes,
I going to hold on to life, this temporary life, or am I going to follow truth and my
that's
heart?
it.
And so whatever the story ignites in everyone listening, what I remember too is there was a lot of these individuals that also got the message from Mary Magdalene that I will return in many. So the frequency of the consort, the beloved, the feminine energetic of Christ consciousness was speaking to all of these individuals, or many of them, saying, we will return.
Yes.
I will return in many. And so,
Yeah.
I can't say that I know, but in terms of feeling a connection, and you and I have this connection to this deep feminine Christ energy
I
embodied in many people at this time.
Yes.
I think that's what I take away from. I mean, there's so much in that story, but I take away following truth, following heart, come what may,
Yeah.
and that this feminine frequency of the Christ is alive and well in many of us, and you are reclaiming some of those lands.
Yeah,
Literally.
literally, I like to do things literally usually in my life. And yeah, and I wouldn't even call it necessarily the feminine Christ energy. I would just call it, it's like, yes, it is one, the love energy, but there's something about when we still use, I love Jeshua, I love the Christ, and I know the Christ consciousness, but it's actually, when we're really clear on it, it's the Sophia consciousness, or it's the Mary consciousness. We have to not always, okay, so not always put it back into the masculine.
And I hear what you're saying, because so many people connotate Christ with the masculine.
Yes.
When for me, but I love it. It's great. Sophia, Christ, for me, the Christ energy is beyond Jeshua or
I
Jesus.
know. I think I'd just like to point it out because I can feel
Yeah.
sometimes it goes again back to
Yep.
him, or the feminine of God. Well, why don't we say the feminine, or the goddess, or the feminine of the Mary consciousness? It's just a semantics, of course, and I totally understand what you're saying.
I love what you're saying, Nicola, because this is the inner marriage.
Yeah.
And this is the opportunity we all have right now inside of our own selves to awaken, because I find for myself that my feminine frequency is being enhanced the more that also I'm embracing and maturing and making evolve my masculine, and that it's all happening inside of me, and everything I see outside of me is that reflection of the feminine, the masculine. And here we have Jesus and Mary, who were on the planet Earth, who
Yeah.
both really held love. I love what you say in your book, like you're the trailblazing love. And I love what we've done together in ceremony.
It's beautiful, very
And
beautiful.
and you talk about the way of love, or the path of love. What does it mean to you when you talk about the way of love?
I think when we thread it back to that fire moment, yeah, that's like the way of love for me is like, it's like come what may, to
Yeah.
choose. It's like something, I choose the love, come what may, even whether you're praised or blamed, to choose the love and to live it more and more real and true in this body here and now. And I feel the way of love, I like it because it's not a finished product. It's a way of living on this earth. It's a way of living in our bodies. It's a way of relating with each other. It's a way of how we treat the animals and the plants and everything in our lives as more and more as sacred, to treat everything as sacred. And sometimes it's a bit messy, where do you lose the thread of the way of love when somebody attacks you, or where do you drop the ball when suddenly things don't go your way? and you shut down. The way of love means not to never shut down, but if you shut down, to become aware and breathe with that and start touching the place that is shut down, and not succumbing to that, not indulging in it, but to touch it with love, even that place that shuts down, so that it can open up again to even greater love. It's like that way of love that goes like into every detail of our lives. And I think I feel that's where, you know, the feminine comes in. You walk it, you live it, you breathe it. Love isn't just a concept.
Yeah, and that's what I so appreciate about you, and how I also feel I am so choosing that. I mean, we were in France together. We had a ceremony. We had the beautiful red thread ceremony where
Yeah, yeah,
we really committed to
yeah,
love, the way of love, which is a process, which is every moment, come what may. And
yeah.
what
And
happened for me is a lot had to dissolve. A lot of my structures and frameworks were dismantled. Like you left Portugal, you moved to France, you bought a home.
yeah,
I stopped working and took a sabbatical. I let go of a lot of my identity in that. I
yeah.
ended a relationship
I remember
that
that.
that I thought was going to last, but yet was not the way of love and truth. There was a compromise and a wanting different things from each other. And so come what may, you, me, and the sisters that were gathered, there were like 12 of us about.
Mm.
We really said yes to that path, and it takes courage. It
And I
takes
think
courage.
that's the word, you know. It does take enormous courage. It's not something for the faint-hearted. What you're describing, you know, when I was leading that retreat and you came, I could feel that there was some who were like half in to the amount that the woman could be in. But I could feel when I never forget that moment, Joy. I hope it's okay to share that here, where remember when in the womb cave, in that dark, incredible power place of her egg cave there, and I initiated you into the Magdalena lineage, and I could feel how you lit up. Like it was just like, wow, your soul just lit up. And your yes to the path was full. And then I knew stuff will happen, because I think what you're just pointing to is so important. This 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 sounds also easy, the come what may. But what happened for you was like big changes and choices to feel into. This wasn't true in your relationship. You had to take a sabbatical. You had to end the relationship, and the stripping that you describe, that's so classic for the awakening, and especially for the feminine, where we go we get stripped naked, and that part is not comfortable.
Yeah, it's not always comfortable, but what happened for me is I really, when so much fell apart, I really didn't know what I was saying when I said come what may, but I did.
Your
And
soul
yeah, and by the way, that was just very orgasmic what happened,
I
right? In the
remember.
womb. That's the best I can on a somatic level. Something took me. I was taken. I
She took you. And for me, it's like, that's why I lead these retreats, because they don't, nobody knows what's going to happen. And I can't tell, because if I told, nobody would come. But at the same time, everybody would come. So I was like, I don't say nothing. And then the soul, your soul has chosen. It was just, that's it. And it was just that opening and that right space. And there it was. And it was good you didn't know what it would entail.
And that was 2019.
Yes.
And here we are today. And my life is so different.
Mhm.
And my life experience internally has transformed. And it was the invitation that I open-heartedly invited. And that
You
was
did.
absolutely to bring in, yes, the Magdalene frequency, yes, her with the capital H. So
Yes.
I really just, it's not the personality. And
No.
you know, I went back to France a year later and I
Mhm.
re-entered the cave. And when I came into the cave, the first thing I said is, do not be so interested in the story of the messenger, of me. This is Mary. In my interpretation, I heard her say, do not be so interested in the story of the messenger, but
Yes.
please receive my message, which is
That's
not
it.
mental. It's
No,
not mental.
no, it's not mental. It's actually, it's like that deep inner, it's with feeling with the body, but then it's deeper than that. It's not
Yeah,
mental at all.
yeah,
It's beautiful. And this come what may is like such a, I love the word courage because it comes from corazon in Latin, the heart. It's and when I always knew is this path is not for the faint-hearted. It's for those who choose to walk with courage, and like those who walked into the fire. Luckily, we don't need to do that this lifetime, but it's that having the courage to say, love, come what may, and whatever came for you, you followed that. You were true to that.
yeah, Nicola, this is powerful. I'm so glad we're having this conversation
Yeah.
because the come what may and the way of love. And recently I've been really touching into the wings of the heart.
Yes, Sophie
And
would.
it's, yeah, it's like love and truth,
Yeah.
and the truth telling for me was I was living out of integrity.
Mm.
I in subtle or profound ways, but I wasn't being true to myself. I wasn't speaking with authenticity in my relationship. I wasn't entirely aligned with why I'm here on the planet. And so my being willing to be honest with myself is what, ended one relationship and shortly after escorted in a really amazing partner for me who I feel totally like enhanced and in my love and truth with that. But it cost me,
Yes.
financially, it cost me, energetically,
Mhm.
physically, health. I mean, like, but once I said, I want to know the truth, and I'm more interested in the eternal self than I am this
Mm.
personality self and the outer circumstances. I'm really interested in my evolution as a soul in this incarnation. And that's when, yeah, things fell apart. And that, I know that's the work you do with other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's that I've had this in my life too, where, for me, the sentence was always love no matter what, come what may. This was my guiding sentence in life. And when it began, little did I know what it actually meant. It just was my soul, right? And then also I had a phase where everything just completely disassembled and fell apart. And I could feel the same, that courage that is given in the moment I just surrendered to my soul and kept saying, yes, this life, this is not about, riches and this and that. And this is the fluff. but it was the pulse of life. And for me, that's the feminine. It's like the pulse of life that just said, there's the pulse of truth. There, this is the pulse of love. There, that's what you follow, come what may. And it always challenged me to drop another layer of hiding, because in some ways we all lie to ourselves. If we're really honest, most of us lie, not consciously or meanly, but we lie to ourselves because we cover ourselves with a lot of stuff and don't even remember who we are. But this honesty, what you spoke into, this radical, but I think kind honesty to look, okay, so what am I actually telling myself? What's actually the truth here? To be curious about that. And what's actually love saying? And sometimes the gap is big. And the hiding is, what happens if I admit that to myself? What happens if I show you my real self? Will you like me? Will you not like me? Well, there's reasons why we hide and lie, but when that invitation from the soul comes and from the divine, and that happened for me also in my life very early, and it just was like, I cannot but say yes to that, even though I don't know what this will do with me.
Yeah.
I feel like then you have true life.
Yeah, something happened for me after I took the sabbatical, and it ended up being about 6 months of international travel, most of which was in Africa and South Africa. But I also went back to France. I went to Israel, went to the Czech Republic. I was studying Tantra. I was doing a lot of things, but in that journey was when I chose truth. And in that choosing truth, therefore the harder decisions or changes that I needed to make on the external, they were not always easy to meet and confront. Kind of like you moving, wait, I don't want to move from Portugal to France, and I'm thinking, wait, I've invested, all these years in this relationship. Are you kidding? And even how my work has pivoted. And so there was kind of a reconciliation that I am not my credentials. I am not my bank account. I am not all of this image or personality that I think I am. I'm not anything that I can't take with me when I die.
No.
And it hit me, and that's kind of what I'm feeling, like the courage to walk into the fire. And that's drastic. And I don't want people who are listening to think, oh my God, your life's going to fall apart, because it might not. It just might be subtle shifts.
For some people, but what all that's going is basically that what is the lie, the untrue, the delusion. It might be that you get a lot of money. It might be that you get your dream partner. It's more like what needs to shed, and this is the grace, and I call it the fierce grace. What's the shedding is just the lies, the delusions that covers. And what you find, I mean, you feel it, the joy, and your name says joy. I feel it. It's just like a bounty of love, fullness inside. Whether I have much in life or not, it doesn't affect that. And I wouldn't trade that in the world for anything.
No, me neither. And what's coming up for me is trust. And trusting that life is for us. Trust that it's a benevolent universe, and that when we say yes to love and truth, and to this path, and to this way, to this process, to this evolution, what needs to shed will shed. And oh my goddess, the blessings are abundant, and they're internal. It's an experience, it's a felt sense. And I know you talk a lot about this, and both of us are just so about the embodiment of spirituality. And maybe we can just kind of like, what does it feel like to have embodied spirituality? What does it feel like? What does it even look like to make every moment sacred? While we might do ceremony, we might meditate and have practices and have moments of so-called the temple time. And what does it really feel like and look like, and how might people benefit? I'd love to just kind of move into that.
I think it's a very good one, because it has to do also with the feminine, about really living the sacred within form, within our humanity, and how it's a sense of, and for me, it's a sense of really being so connected. It's being fully here, but at the same time, with that flame in my heart that's burning, that is where I feel, okay, so I touch my cat and I feel her whole being, and I feel her in my body. I feel connected. Or when I commune with the land or the people, it's like there's a soul connect. There's an aliveness. I call it enlivenment. That is where I see so many people are craving for it. They go for, a lot of alcohol or drugs or whatever to find that sense of aliveness. And yet, I feel, as I'm in touch with that aliveness and connected, because of the embodiment, this is the soul is landed in my humanity. In that moment, everything is sacred. It's not just a concept. It's a felt sense. It's a living, breathing experience of the love that's palpable.
No, I'm with you. And I'm just feeling like everyone who's like watching or listening, it's like, I want to say the practices are practices.
Oh yeah, you need the practices.
Yeah,
And
the
you need to do the inner work. You need to do also the healing work, because otherwise you can't embody. Because if you disassociate and you don't deal with your traumas, well, there's something the life force cannot enter. It's blocked. And so everything is a gateway to, okay, the more you do the deeper work, then what happens, guess what? More life force can flow through you. You're more embodied. And I mean, and the other part is a practice of saying, okay, so you know about what's it to love, but will you act on it?
Yeah. And so I'll just be really personal. Like emotions to me are language of the soul.
I know.
I used to always try to figure out what my emotions meant. So I was
Get
telling
that.
stories and actually the last 5 years especially have really gotten comfortable with letting my emotions move. And so yesterday, I had so much grief, Nicola, and it was just coming through me. And all I could do was go lay down and cry. And that's the practical that we're talking about. That's the making space. That's the making space, or clearing the way to allow more of spirit to be in form. And I chose, and I tend to choose to, if there's like clarity of messages that are coming in the emoting, I will listen. But if the emotions are telling stories that reignite or refuel more beliefs or victim consciousness, it's just pass it through, pass it through, pass it through, because what's more important is just simply letting the feeling be felt.
It's just the feeling. I see this all the time. And the stories is really the mind telling the stories, so you won't need to feel the intensity of the emotion. And I have seen this like in the Western world, even among women, the emotions, if it reaches a certain pitch of anger or a certain pitch of grief, it's like, let's just tell the story, let's get away from it, let's cover it over, let's make a drama out of it, let's just freaking escape this, or try to figure it out why I'm having this. For me, life has hit me, it's given me so much intensity. At some point, I needed to learn to ride the waves, and it was just a a flavor of life. It becomes like this. Okay, so here's anger. You let it move through, and then harness the power that's within that. The fear. Okay, let it move through. Don't get hooked into the story, but also don't try to fix that fear the whole time. Let it shake through, let it do its thing, and what is revealed, greater life force, because the life force was stuck in the fear. So it's like, and I felt like, to me, that's what I bring also to my women, is like, oh, this way is like, it gets deeper and more fuller and richer as the feelings are, there are in way, there are our, I think as women, because we're naturally wired for connection, we have to feel our babies. Like, I raised a child, it's like there's a bond there, and through the feeling, it's like, yeah, there's the heart. But then what we do with the feeling, that's what creates all the problems. And
the stories that the mind tells, I love that. It's exactly my experience. And so emotion is energy in motion.
it's just life in motion. It's all there is. It's like, I always tell people, okay, it's the weather. Today, you have rainy weather, you need to cry. All right, today it's stormy outside, you're having a fit. But any feeling felt just lasts a minute, and then it changes. It's like there's the impermanence, but at the same time, there is a richness, a realness, an aliveness that comes with that, letting the flow happen.
So I want to make this really real for everyone that's listening, because it is an art and it is a discipline, and it does take a loving presence. So we all have these incredible consciousnesses, and we're able to have emotion while also holding for ourselves, or asking for help and receiving a therapist or a counselor, a mentor, someone to be with us. But like, when these times come, and I know for myself, I do both. Sometimes I like to have someone hold with me. Sometimes I can bring in simultaneously with whatever's being felt. I've got a steady presence that's just right here saying, all is well, all is well. Let it loose, whether it's anger or grief or fear. Anger often ignites clarity of agreements and boundaries. It's a beautiful messenger. Sadness softens the heart. Fear has messages about where I'm out of integrity. It's showing up because, no, you're off course, and listen to me. There's something here. You need to be afraid of this. Or it's a dismantling of just like old stuff.
It's natural to have these feelings, and nobody has died ever of a feeling. Honestly, that was nobody that was written in the newspaper. He felt too much. People actually die more likely of repressing their feelings or making big dramas out of it. But I find, like, when I help people, or when I feel it myself, it's like, when you go to the core of the root of the feeling, there's a purity in it, a purity that's an essence part of your soul, of your being. It's the language of the soul that is deeper than emotion. The emotion is like the surface waves of the ocean, and then comes, you go down, 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 further down, and there is that raw, pure anger that is just a fire, and it's like igniting something that brings forth a piece of lost truth or lost power. So it's like there are such gifts in it. But sometimes, as you said, it's very, very important to have support. And some of it is really old trauma, which you mustn't go through alone, ever. It's trauma is already enough when you had to deal with something by yourself when you couldn't. And then you try to deal with the trauma again by yourself. It just reinforces it. So it's good to have, because most of it happens anyway in relationships. So a loving relationship with some help is, and that doesn't need to be your partner. Actually, it shouldn't be, but it's so crucial that we know, and especially as women, that we know we are not walking alone here. We're not.
You know, we're really speaking to also the innate wisdom that is available in the deeper levels. So I like what you said. And I had a spiritual teacher, a Jewish rabbi, actually, that I studied with for 5 years. And I really refer to him as my core teacher, but he would talk about the messages that are available in our own wisdom. But if you look down, like let's say the message is at the bottom of a pool, there's a message for us there. But if the water is really ripply, which represents the emotions, we need to, and we're invited to just feel that, emote that, release that, express that, allow that to move. Because otherwise it creates stagnation in our blood flow, in our physical bodies. You're right, that creates the illnesses that are, causing the deaths. But if we can really dive in and allow ourselves to emote, to release, and we know that's what's happening in the presence of another or alone, then we get to what's deeper. And usually there is something there for us. And that's the journey kind of we're talking. I mean, that's the practicality of like.
And it takes a willingness to stay present and really open, and again, present, and to lean in, but with a kindness, not just awareness, because I find awareness just isn't cutting it. It's not enough. Because then I hear people say, well, I've been staying with this. And no, you're not meant to just stay with it present. It is not enough. That lovingness has to come in, because nothing ever will shift or open up without love.
I am having so much fun with you, Nicola, because I feel like, I do feel from you, and, I know for myself that this is the path we're on. And I'm right with you that it's like the more I can feel and understand and experience love during this evolutionary process that I'm in, we're all in, it's the healing salve. It's everything. And so let's just, like, how do we cultivate love? How do we cultivate love? Maybe let's go there. Like, and I really want to know practical things. Like, let's just, like, how do you?
Okay. Oh, that's, my book is all about that too, but I love that you get also to the nitty gritty. And I think some of what we just talked about was already in the nitty gritty, but I mean, one of the things, and we can just play back and forth here, but one of the things for me was always, I lived with great masters and they embodied the love, and I kept watching. And there was one thing that I felt, you need to drop the how. You need to actually just see, okay, so here is, and of course we want to know the how. It's important. There is this piece of saying, okay, so the love is here. If we just assume the love is here, which it is, but if I feel disconnected, it's not your fault. For number one, it's taking responsibility. That's a piece that's really, I find very important. For my state of affairs, I'm responsible. You're not the one who makes me feel separate. It's a big one. And then the other part is also to look, okay, so if I have disconnected, what is it in me that where I just cut off from, well, from my heart? Let's take it even more simple. Where have I closed down that is blocking? Because if my heart is closed and I live in the future and the past nonstop, and I'm not really here, well, there's only a drizzle of love coming out at certain moments, and you're really dependent on others to make you feel good and to make you feel safe so you can love a little bit. But that's a very codependent state. That's an unhappy state, I find. So if a person takes full responsibility, okay, so my heart right now, and this maybe everybody can feel into, how is your heart right now? Do you feel open? Do you feel closed? Do you feel in the middle? Do you feel half? And to not judge that, but to get really curious. All right, okay, I can feel there's a softness, there's a warmth. I don't feel nothing, maybe, but to just touch into what's here. And it's the same what we can do in relationships, to acknowledge and then not stay there and just be with it, but rather to touch that place that has closed down for whatever reason, to just touch it even with your hand and say, yeah, there you are, you've closed down, something is scary, something is hurting, and here I love you, here, this one. And then notice what happens in your heart. Something might be softening right now, something might be opening. This simple of loving, acknowledging, and to not make it a big drama or anything, but really get near, get close up.
It's so beautiful. It's cultivating a relationship with ourselves,
Yes.
all of our parts, and to be
Yes.
able to invite the most loving part of ourselves to say, oh, I hear you, you're scared, or I'm with you, sweetheart. I know you're insecure, or just, I know I have these internal kinds of conversations with myself where I invite the most loving part of myself to nurture
Yeah.
that which
Yeah.
is not feeling that. And the other thing that came to me when I was just like, well, how do we cultivate love is, for me, the fastest way is gratitude.
Yeah.
It's just so like right now in this moment, what can I be grateful for?
I find with the gratitude piece, because for some people, there's not much to be grateful for when you feel really in the pit. And for me, what carried me at certain times is really that sentence: thank you for all that is taken, and thank you for all that is given.
I love that. I love that. I have one that I say a lot. It's, yeah, thank you for all the blessings I have received, all the blessings I am receiving. Thank you for all the blessings I will receive. And I trust, and I trust.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It's just, I think there's that blessing, but we always feel, often as humans, we feel like the blessing is the good. But what about the troubles that everybody gets to experience? What about the challenges? To be grateful for that is a whole other story, because if we're really honest, it's not easy to be grateful for, really, like, if your money runs out or you lose your job, and to say thank you for all that is taken, thank you for all that is given. That leads much more into a non-dual space where
yes.
this and that, it's like beyond praise and blame, beyond what's given and what's taken. Thank you to life.
Yeah. It was a blessing for me And I hope anyone who's had a really difficult, something has been taken, like your dignity, your
Your
reputation,
partner, your friend,
your
your
house, your
dog.
money. I mean, I had a tremendous amount of money stolen from me. It was
Oh,
a cyber attack, and that happened to happen during after the come what may. And I
oh,
knew, yeah, so I knew that this too is for the good. Gamzula Tova, the Baal Shem Tov said. So when we say blessing, thank you for all the blessings. I love that we're just having this conversation. The blessings are sometimes in disguise.
yeah,
But if we can have that kind of perspective and understanding and willingness to even empower ourselves with questions, we might not know now why things are happening the way they're happening, but we can stay open to the
yeah,
possibility that if we live in a benevolent universe and we have said the prayer that we are on the path of truth and love, come what may, that if we've really declared that, whatever is happening, that's where the rubber meets the road. So
absolutely.
shit,
Yes,
no kidding, I have to lose this. But what if we can hang, if we can really walk in that kind of faith and trust, and say, thank you, thank you, thank you. I trust, I needed this, because we're talking about losing things that are impermanent anyway.
I know. But we're hanging on to them for dear life. I mean, it's understandable because we need to survive on this planet, but there is a piece where we're still kind of like thinking, okay, this is my life, this coat, this house, this car, this money. But it's kind of like when we go back to the story at the beginning when the Cathars walked into the fire. I mean, that takes guts to say, because the survival is so strong, and say, we walk for the love no matter what, come what may. And we even go into the fire, and that fire is for everybody different, really. And it takes guts to bless something, as you say, that looks not so great on the surface. And I would say also, it doesn't mean that you have to walk around like, oh, that's wonderful, when really you feel like that's shit, what just happened to be real. You feel it. And then there's this thank you and a deeper trust in life that it, even if you never find out the reason, there's a gift that you can harness even from that, even from the darkest mess. You just need to go digging sometimes. And with the blessing, it opens the way to see with the eyes of love, to hear with the love that clearly shows, here's the gold right under that mud pile. Just put your hands in, honey, and dig it out. It's here.
Yeah, what we're after is inside, not outside.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that is a state of consciousness that is available no matter the circumstances on the outside. That's what we're pointing to in these conversations and in this conversation as I see it.
Yeah.
And wow, isn't it sweet? I mean, it's pretty sweet. It's sweet. It's
Yeah.
available.
Yeah. Yeah. It's beautiful also because then that love just flows also into our actions. It's like when you ask, how do we cultivate love? It's in our actions. It's on our actions. But when it comes from the inside, then it feels more real but sometimes the action can lead us also to more connection. It's both ways, isn't it? When I do something good for you, it makes me happy too.
Yeah, reciprocity, given,
Yeah,
yeah, we're
yeah,
all
yeah. And when I just think of doing something for, we have an orphanage in the Congo, and just thinking of how can I help those kids over there. And this what I like to always say, how do you cultivate love? You take one thing, and even if it's the smallest way, and you bring it into your action. Like, and I think of, okay, I'm just going to send a little bit more money over there, or I talk with a kid over there, or there's an action that fosters the cultivation of love and the embodiment of it. I think so. It's like I think sometimes it's like the being and the acting as one dance. You inviting me for this talk today. It's also you setting this up for giving something into the world. It's an act of love, really, because I know you. It comes from a more pure space. It doesn't come from, oh, I want more followers.
I'm really rooted in being a part of the transformation on the planet right now. When you were talking, I was thinking, what would love do? I do ask myself that question, what would love do? And the other question I sometimes ask is, how can I show myself I love myself right now? And those are both action oriented. It's not,
Yeah.
how can I feel like I love myself right now? How can I love myself? It's like, how
How
can
can
I
I show
show myself?
and how can I show you that I love you? And this gets into an action because often we want to feel loved, and then we're looking for how can I feel love when I don't feel loved. It doesn't work that way. It's sometimes they just have to find another way into, okay, so how can I connect to love in this moment? And sometimes it's a good question what you just said about how can I show love or show myself love. And yes, what would love do, I find, has been always my leading sentence. And it's often surprising because the mind thinks it knows love, but it really doesn't. It can kneel down to serve love. It's the heart that knows.
And Nicola, in your book, you share a lot of your personal stories and a lot about this, a lot about cultivating love. I'll just share the book again. I shared it in the
Thank
intro.
you.
Unleashed.
Thank you.
It's so beautiful. And you and your horses and your horse stories, there's so much about really living in freedom that you're doing. I'm so excited you live in France. I'm thrilled that
Yeah.
you live in the energy of that place and you've reclaimed your land. And
I think it's reclaiming me, Joy. I mean, it's both ways, but it's like saying, "Hey, welcome here home." I'm like, "Huh? What just happened? You have to come. You have to visit."
well, I do see myself coming back to the south of France. I have such a call, and it's part of our connection. I have such a call
Mm.
to that arena, that area, that region, that feeling, and the Mary Magdalene
Mm-hmm.
gifts that are available.
Yeah, and I think she's one of them who really embodied the love, embodied the feminine in full, more than anyone I've ever known. And I think that's why she's just rising like crazy in the world. I'm really happy about it. I just feel it's also, I feel so strongly the feminine is needed in our world right now, and the women need to awaken, like, and come into the embodiment, because I sincerely I believe that it's us who are turning the world.
Yeah, yeah, that balance, and the men that are waking up in their feminine and their evolved masculine,
Yeah.
and each and every one of us waking up in both. It's like this marriage is happening inside. We're not going from one patriarchy to matriarchy. We're
No, no,
really
no.
in a time of union. Yeah. And so it is the rise of that. It is the rise, and it is available for men and women on the planet right now.
Which is such a joy, which is such a blessing. I mean, I started when I was, so young and it was nobody. And now everybody is like, in one way or another, not everybody, but a lot of masses of people are waking up. And I think we need this wave. We really do. And for that, it's almost like, yes, there is the joy in waking up. What else could be better?
I love that you've been blazing this trail. Thank you for being a pioneer and a way shower.
Oh, thank you, Joy.
Mm.
It's beautiful here to sit with you. I just see you blossom so much. It's really wonderful. It's like the seed just got ignited in that cave and you just blossomed. And all that fell away was just the covering of the seed. That's all that was. And look what a beautiful flower.
And it is a way, like you said, it's ongoing.
It goes deeper and deeper. In my experience, it goes deeper and deeper.
It almost feels like it's individual and collective.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of what I'm doing now in my letting go of pretense and pleasing, improving, and criticism, and all sorts of those kinds of energies and ideals. It's like it's for me and this personality, and
Yeah.
and it's also feeling like it's for all of us, and we're all doing it. We're all like, what we do on the personal affects the global.
Yeah. And that's a good thing. That's a really good thing because we have quite some mess in the global, not just individual. So I experience often just the collective field just works through me. And I'm like, huh, where does that come from? And it's just, it has to have a body to all the shame and all the fears. I mean, it has to transmute through a body and to lift. And some of the bodies are already enough open and prepared. And it's like, okay, take on this one, let it move through. And you know, it's fascinating. And then the wounds, you probably noticed that too, the wounds that felt at some point personal, then suddenly it's the collective wounds that start calling for healing. And with every one of us, something in the collective starts to heal too. So when we do that work, so it's so worth it to walk the way of love.
I dedicate this to the global, to the collective, to all of us, that
Mm.
we keep walking the path, the way of love.
Yes.
Thank you. This is fun. I so love you. I so appreciate you. Thank you for being with me. And I'm glad we can share this with other people, just as two human beings with our feet on the ground on the planet Earth at this time.
I treasure you, Joy, and I'm really happy to share this with all who happen to listen, and may it give you the blessings on this journey. And yeah, and I just enjoyed our conversation a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll include down below in the description, show notes and everything, just like how people can play with you and grow with you and work with you. I know that my experiences with you, both as a friend and as a participant in your facilitation, has it was not words, although there were words that were wise. It really was and is the transmission that you offer that is real. And you've walked in and through the fire, and you're continuing to be a model of that. Really appreciate you. Really.
Oh, thank you. I feel really honored. Thank you, Joy. Oh.
All right. Thank you everyone for being with us. More to
Yeah.
come. Here we go.